Okay, so we've got a few joining us. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? We've got a tech check going. Just a thumbs up or a comment, just to make sure everyone's, thanks Ryan, that's great. Awesome. Seeing a few coming in now, which is great to see. Might just wait a couple more minutes because we've got quite a few joining us, and I notice we've only got around about 10 there. So before we get started, just again, usual spiel, to save on bandwidth, can you turn your videos off and mute yourself until we get into the discussion? That way everyone can be guaranteed the best connection possible. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, or we can help you on this end. And we'll get started very soon. So grab a coffee and we'll come back to you in about a minute's time. Great. And quite a few joining us, which is great. Great to see. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, just to reiterate, to save on bandwidth, I feel like I'm boarding the Qantas airplane and giving you the safety spiel, but if you wouldn't mind making sure you're on mute and disconnecting your video just as we get into it. We've got quite a few joining us, so that makes sure that we've all got the best bandwidth available to see and hear what's going on. So welcome Warami from here in Darug country, and may I acknowledge our traditional owners, past, present, future and emerging, on this week, which is National Reconciliation Week. So may I acknowledge that first and foremost, and kick off with saying we've got quite a few new people on the line today, which is great to see. So for those that have been here before and heard lots of what's been going on in previous forums, apologies, you're going to hear it again because I want to make sure that we cover it off for our new people joining us today. So for those that don't know me, I'm Laurie Mode. I'm the CEO of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT. Firstly, I just wanted to reiterate that we have an organisation that is very connected to the health and wellbeing of our community. That's first and foremost why we exist. And what we try to do is ensure that they're providing the skills for the community in building resilience through what challenges life will throw them. So by doing that, we combine with the outdoor sector, the outdoor activity sector, because we know that that sector is the one that does that the best. So we do that by not only just supporting those that work in it, but we advocate for people to get out into the outdoors and experience the activities and the benefits that come with that. And we also liaise with the policymakers to make sure that they are very familiar with our sector and what they require, what we need from them to guide us in that. We also work with stakeholders and various suppliers of the sector to get the best deals possible for our members, and just generally communicating the worth of the sector. This slide here, you can actually see that we have quite a broad range of members that are part of our organisation, and everyone requires something different from us. So we certainly make sure that we try to do that through all of those different areas in the hexagons there, which is the advocating, the education, the information gathering, and advocacy. So without further ado, we've got a lot on the agenda today. So I wanted to make sure we sort of jump into the agenda pretty quickly. But like always, I will hang back after the meeting and certainly answer any questions you may have individually, and also discuss anything that you don't feel comfortable in doing in the public forum. So I just also wanted to say that we are recording today so that we put it on the website, and make sure that everyone has access to it if they couldn't make it today. We have a few guest speakers with us today, which is really, really exciting, and thank you so much to you all. Firstly, may I say Gary Rake, I'm hoping he's on. Yes, I can see him there. Welcome, Gary. How are you? And we've also got Jeff Bailey from McCrindle Research joining us as well. Thanks, Jeff. And I think it's Erin from ATIC. I don't know where she's online yet. Let's see if I can find her. If not, she'll be along very soon. Oh, there she is. Thanks, Erin. And we've got Kyle from National Parks will join us a little bit later. He had a few things that he had to deal with urgently this morning. And a few just individual sector members who want to bring some things to our agenda today. So first and foremost, let's do a quick reminder on some of the things available for you right now. You remember through some of the other forums, we spoke about recommending our services amongst each other, and the regional register is now open. So please, if you want to be part of that, to make sure that you're recommending like organisations, if you cannot cope with the inquiries you're getting as the doors start opening up, we want to keep the business and the sector benefiting from that. So this is a regional register where we can refer each other. So make sure you register on there if you want to be shared with other organisations, and vice versa. The second one there is the job portal that I spoke to you about last week, which is an initiative of the Outdoor Council of Australia. If you're out there trying to recruit positions for the rebound back into business and activity, make sure you let us know what your SIC ID number is, because we've got a link that is primarily focused to the outdoor sector, and we'll be promoting that far and wide to try to get more notoriety on the sector and get you more inquiries for your positions. The third one is obviously the Friday Forum. So like we've been doing every week, 10 a.m. Friday, we'll bring a whole heap of content to you, stuff that we've been talking to you about during the week, any questions or things that you may have or bring to our attention. We'll make sure the Friday Forums are the platform for us to share that widely and answer some of those queries. Yesterday we had a fabulous session with Liz Horn, and for those that were there, I'm sure you'd agree, it was a great sort of catch up and reminder for us on the activity standards, and the webinar recording will be live on our website probably today, so if you miss that, please jump on and listen to that. But the good news is, out of that, I think there's so much demand for understanding more about this that there'll be follow-up workshops coming online very soon. And then the last one there, which I'm continually receiving excellent feedback on, which is great, is also then another activity that I've been involved in through the Outdoor Council of Australia and the other states, my comrades in arms, and that's the COVID-19 management plan template, which followed the framework that we also did following the AAAS guidelines. So that template certainly has helped a lot of businesses in understanding some of the things that they can put in place as they come out of COVID, and certainly, as I say, got a lot of good feedback on that. So if you haven't looked at it, please do. Okay, so today's agenda, jam-packed as I've said, but I'm going to hand over to Gary Rake from Office of Sport, who's the Director of Regional and also a buddy on my task force for recovery. So Gary, over to yourself, and please introduce yourself and any updates you may have from the Office of Sport.
Sure. So my name is Gary Rake. I'm the Executive Director of Regional Delivery, which means I look after all of the sport and rec centres across New South Wales. So from Lake Ainsworth in the north to Berry in the south, out to Jindabyne, Barambula, Lake Keepit. I also look after our efforts to promote sport and active lifestyle, active recreation across the region. So all of our regional delivery plans, relationships with local councils. And in this current COVID environment, I'm the chair of a working group on the recovery group that Laurie works on. And my focus is helping the active recreation sector. So I've taken a real interest in trying to make sure that where the Office of Sport has an opportunity to connect into government, we can bring the views of the sector in and try and advocate on your behalf, try and find where there are problems and what we can do to solve them. So my own background, I've been in and out of government at different levels several times, ranging from Chief Executive of a small Commonwealth government agency based in Canberra, through to running sport and recreation for the ACT government, and in the private sector, ranging from banking to being a partner in one of the big four consulting firms. But I've come back to this role particularly to chase my passion, I guess, which is around helping people have healthy, active lifestyles. And look, the final thing I'd say about myself, my outdoor interests, running, hiking, trail running, kayaking, bushwalking, and I like things at altitude. So anything up in the mountains is for me, but you'll catch me in the bush, the coast, pretty well anywhere outdoors, running feral. The sort of work that we've been doing lately is looking at how we help the active recreation sector, how we help the sector first survive COVID, then work out how to adapt as we move into a new COVID-safe environment and restrictions start easing, deal with disruption and think about new business models. The biggest challenge that we're facing, I think, at the moment is nervousness. Nervousness in government, nervousness in the community, and the worry I have is that everyone's answer will be to the more conservative of the options, that people's default will be no, that they'll find it too challenging to look for ways to engage in our activities in a safe manner and to enable the sector to restart as quickly and as fully as we would all like, and that that will flow through, that nervousness will flow through to consumer confidence. So the number one thing that I'm doing is trying to promote confidence and risk engagement. We all know that we can get our sector back up and running quickly. We all know that we are so skilled at managing everyday risk in the work that we do. So much of our work is based on helping people engage with risk and get a thrill from doing something that they otherwise thought was a challenge. That makes us among the most perfectly placed people in the state to be able to help the community engage with this new risk, this illness, this virus, but to manage it and to not let it get in the way of our lives, and to get out into the great outdoors and engage in these activities that will give them mental health, physical health, build their confidence, and for people throughout our community, from the very youngest to the very oldest, show them that our sector gives them life skills that they can take in that will help them manage the challenges of this modern world. So if I jump at some of the really specific challenges that we're looking at, I see a note there. If you've got any questions, please fire them through. They can be as bold or as brash as you need. I'm pretty hard to insult. I'm really worried about how government will come at close contact activities. So there are some of our outdoor activities, say harnessed activities, for example, that do require us to get in close to people, and maintaining physical spacing at all times can be a challenge. I'm also worried about how government will view tighter group activities, whether that's group-based accommodation or group-based meals and amenity and other sort of activities, transport. I'm going to be taking the view into government that we can find comparisons elsewhere in the community that give us the protocols we need and the confidence that we need to restart these. So I imagine, and I just saw a question pop up on the screen about increasing numbers for clubs and pubs. It's a good example. If I think about close contact for putting a harness on a person, a climbing harness, for example, I can see parallels to working close in a beautician environment. And so the sort of safety protocols that government might ask beauticians to put in place as they return to their businesses, I'll be arguing that they could look for comparisons for us to enable us to reopen our businesses and our sector. Some of the political challenges, I guess, is the furious debate that exists in the community around how we respond to this disease. And the voices that are the loudest tend to be those who are the most conservative. So wherever we can find a way to safely manage things ourselves without needing to escalate approvals, I would recommend that we do so. So if the rules currently don't preclude one of our activities and we think we can safely manage it as business people, as community leaders, as organisations and hosts, then we should just get on with our business. We should put our own safety plans in place and move along. If the activity is not banned, I would say get on and get back to it. Laurie, what else have we been working on that you'd like me to cover? You've probably got a better insight on it.
Yeah, look, I think well, you've covered off some of the things that I was hoping you would. The question around the snow and the ski season, I didn't know if you had any further insight onto that as yet, but the work you've been doing there is certainly of interest to a lot of our sector.
Sure. I think that's a really good example where the discussion a few weeks ago looked at what sort of approvals might be needed for the ski season to open. But what we can look at now is that under the standard public health order as it stands, travel around the state will be unrestricted, or we'll have the restriction removed from 1st of June. That enables a range of further activities to occur, and there's a general public health order that deals with maximum gathering sizes and advice around commercial accommodation and public gatherings, social distancing or physical distancing. There is an ability for the sector to restart and have a ski season without needing any further approval, and I think the sector has done well to work together, prepare a COVID-safe plan to be able to manage its own risk. And so I hope you will have all seen the announcements that the Deputy Premier made. Ski season is expected to start on the 22nd of June. What we will see this year is a considerable restriction in the number of people that will be available or able to get onto the slopes and into the resorts at any one time. Largely that's going to be driven around the need to reduce density and maintain physical distancing. So if your business works in and around the ski season, the snow season, start to think through what you will need to do to maintain physical distancing and better hygiene practices. The other thing I'd say there is, as you're thinking about COVID-safe plans, there are some good resources out there that have been made available by government agencies. So you could look at the New South Wales website, you can look at work safety websites, you can look at the Sports Commission, and I know that Laurie has put together some fantastic materials on behalf of your sector. So I think the way you've come together as a sector at New South Wales and national level is exemplary leadership. You're trying to get ahead of the wave and make sure that businesses have access to the information they need. Keep it simple. So the most recent advice I've seen from New South Wales Health says that businesses who consider 6 key areas in their safety plans are going to be in good shape. I hope I can remember all 6 of them. I know it's 6, but we'll see how I go. So the first one is making sure that people who are sick or have returned from overseas aren't included in your activities, either as workers, as volunteers, or as participants. The second one is to think about impact on vulnerable people. So Caucasians over the age of 60, people from an Indigenous heritage of over the age of 50, people who have underlying health conditions. The third one is maintaining physical distancing. The simple 1.5 metre rule, 1 per 4 square metres. The fourth one is around hygiene and cleanliness, so hand washing. Making sure that people are washing their hands as frequently as they can, as well as they can. The 20-second rule with soap or an alcohol-based cleaner. So what have we got there? That's 4. The fifth one is hygiene on your high-touch surface areas. So that might be light switches in a building. It might be equipment in your business. It might be the handrest on a seat. And then the final element is making sure that you've kept a record of who was involved in your activity so that you can help with the contact tracing exercise. And so if you run through that, a lot of that is already embedded in your business. So keeping a track of who was involved for contact tracing, many of us are already maintaining participant registers. So that sort of stuff will put you in really good shape. So if you do a business plan that has those 6 elements really clear, you'll be in great shape.
I tried to summarise them as best as I could there, Gary, so let me know if I've got any of those wrong. But yeah, that's great, thank you. Is there any questions for Gary that, that people have individually, or something that we can help address? You can either pop it in the chat or just unmute yourself and speak to it.
I've got one for Gary.
Hi, David.
G'day, David.
Are you talking to, I'm from Victoria, are you talking to your counterparts in other states? And yeah, that's some really good stuff coming out there. We're not necessarily getting exactly as good as stuff from our own areas. Are you talking to your counterparts in other states?
State to state, no, not a lot. And the simple reason for that is that each state is taking is implementing an approach that's appropriate for its own environment and its own health and risk posture. So each of the states is talking to the Commonwealth. So I think that the Commonwealth is setting a national framework. Each of the states is trying to take that information, use it as a guide based on everything from what we're seeing in our own communities, and I emphasise communities because we know that here in New South Wales, at the height of the infections, we had a couple of hotspots, some in Sydney, some on the Central Coast, but out in Western New South Wales, it was relatively clear. So we've had to customise for that. And so if, in Victoria, my counterparts there will be drawing on the same Commonwealth advice I do, but they'll have to apply their own local interpretation.
No worries. If you were able to put your email up, I could put you into contact with our friend in government in Sport and Rec in Victoria, which is David Strickland, and perhaps you could just have a little bit of chat about some of the stuff you're doing, because I think that would be valuable if it came out in our world, If that's
sure.
acceptable. In an informal sense,
There you go, my email's now in the chat.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks, David. Dan, have you got a mic there, or do you want me to ask the question? I'm just trying to find you there so I can unmute you.
I've got a mic. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Fabulous. Yep. Shoot away.
Thanks so much, Gary. Really appreciate your information. One question I do have is outdoor ed providers. One thing we can't really mimic with sort of bars and clubs and hairdressers and so, which is a great tip, but it's the overnight accommodation. Like often we're sleeping in either joint tents or joint bunk rooms or things like that. Do you have any thoughts, advice? I mean, you can kind of manage it in a plan, but not really. It feels quite grey to me when that element becomes okay. What do you think about that?
Yeah, look, that's a key challenge for us, and I'd say I have two motivations there. The first one is our sport and rec centres, as little business entities in their own right, face exactly that same challenge. So I want to solve it so that our customers and guests can come back, but I also want to solve it as an advocate for the sector. And I've said to Laurie that to the extent that I can, as an insider to government, be the Trojan horse that presents an argument to government on how we can do this safely and then share the benefit with the sector, I'm happy to do that. This has got to be a partnership. What I do in the interim, with the travel restrictions easing from 1st of June, I believe there's now some guidance around about indoor commercial accommodation, and it basically starts to build out on the rules around how many visitors we could have in our homes over sort of the last month as those restrictions have eased. So householders will, as I understand it, remain less restricted when they go into commercial accommodation. So they could still, in the ski season where we might be used to trying to jam 10 people into a 6-person apartment, that's probably a low ratio. Households will still be able to go in quite densely into any form of accommodation, but with the others, that 4 square metre rule, and I think I've read somewhere a maximum of 5 in a commercial accommodation unit. I don't know what the size limitation there is. Other constraints that we're working to. That becomes really tough for tents. So, what we would commonly consider to be a 2-person tent is probably going to become a 1-person tent in future. So if you start to think about what could we do to get closer to that 4 square metre rule, it might be one of those cases where it's then a question we don't need to ask because we already have an answer available to us. If we can rebuild our business, and it might mean that we need to have more tents, or it might be for indoor accommodation that we are having to find ways to halve our density, that could give us an opportunity to get going again.
So kind of just in summary, whether you're sleeping or drinking a beer, as long as you're 4 square metres away.
Yep. So what I'll do is I'll keep an eye out and I'll try and find, if there's anything available already, the official guidance on commercial accommodation. I'll share that with Laurie, and Laurie can share it out to the sector, but that would be the nearest guide. So if we hunt it through, if there are guidances for commercial accommodation and there's no prohibition on camping, then off we go. If we find there's still a prohibition on camping, then we might have a problem, but let's chase it through that way.
Oh, brilliant.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for the question, Dan. Ian, just on yours, I'll address it quickly, but we're talking about that later in the agenda. But the restrictions aren't there anymore. We can operate the same as Gary just said. If we abide by the restrictions that are put in place, we can certainly, sport and recreation can get back. But we'll talk a little bit more on that. Gary, the only other question I had for you is, do you know when the next public order will be live on the legislation website at all? Have you been given an indication of what first of June is going to look like?
I wouldn't be brave enough to pick a time. So what we saw last time was that it went live at about 10 to midnight when it was taking effect from midnight. So they have been coming through very, very late.
Okay, no worries. Thank you so much.
So my guess would be it could come late on Sunday.
Great. Okay. Knowing that Kyle's not with us at the moment, I thought we might just touch on Department of Education, because I did have a few questions that came through, and Gary's been helping me in this. As he said, he's going from the government to government approach, and I'm doing the industry to government approach. So for those that did ask me about Department of Education and where they're up to with allowing camps and excursions, there's a few challenges we've got. The policy that's out there for the Department of Education says that all excursions are branded one and the same, so camps falls under that. Obviously, we're trying to work with them to say outdoor ed could be considered quite differently, but no grace on that as yet. The next challenge we've got is that they have said that excursions are not to return until their phase 4, which by all indications on their framework is when everything is back to normal. So we're just trying to work with them to understand what sort of time frame that looks like, but also using the case studies that we're seeing across other states. I don't know how many have heard, but South Australia has allowed excursions to occur from this week. So hopefully working with other states and bringing that to the department's attention, hopefully might get some further clarity on that. In saying that, we know that independent schools are independent, and they're certainly making their own risk assessments. And from all accounts, some of the schools that I've spoken to are well geared to get back up and running pretty much from next week and from term 3. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight, but work in progress. And certainly Gary and I will update you when we get more information. Conscious of time, we're a little bit behind, but I wanted to make sure that you heard from someone I know quite well, Jeff Brayley from McCrindle Research, which is an amazing organisation that looks at social demographics. Hi, Jeff. And I wanted him to spend 10 minutes with you just to give you an insight into a great document that I've read, which is looking into the our customers' perspective and fears going out of COVID and what they're going to face. So I wanted to hand over to Jeff and give you a taster. And if you're interested, he has offered to come back for a more solid understanding of the report. So over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. Great to be with you all. Thanks for an opportunity to share. And I'm from McCrindle Research. We're a social research company, and it's been an incredibly fascinating time to be in social research in an era of social distancing. Now, while there's been some upsides as social researchers, we know the impacts have been hard hit across so many different areas of not just Australian culture and society, but also globally. So we've been doing some research. We love collecting and analysing and visualising the data, and I'll just share a few trends with you this morning. We've got a full report available that's free. It's available at analyseaustralia.com. And this is the second study we've done where we've looked at the impact of COVID-19 on Australians. And so we did our first study as the restrictions were starting to come in late March, and now we've done another study just in a survey from the 8th to the 12th of May, which might seem like a little while ago now, but it was just a fortnight ago. And this is when we've looked at questions really around what's the emotions and the mood and the outlook as this road to recovery is beginning to emerge and as restrictions are starting to lift. And probably one of the key findings was in the first study, the top emotion that people were feeling back in March, which feels like about a decade ago, was anxiety. 45% of Australians said they were feeling anxious in that time, which has dropped in this latest study down to 38%. Interesting, though, that hope has risen from 27% in that study, which even was quite a surprise, to be honest, in the first study, that 27% of people still had a sense of hope in March. Now, that might be that buoyant Australian spirit, hard to get us down, but that has risen from 27% up to 35%, and even higher for the older generations. So for the baby boomers and the builders, those 55 plus, we've noticed that that's gone right up, almost close to 50%. So the Australians who are older, who've now made it through probably what has been the greater health risk, are having that stronger sense of hope, whereas our younger generations are feeling it a little bit tougher when it comes to the outlook. And that's anxiety possibly around job, work, study, maybe the loss of travel in the past, a high value for those younger generations. Now, when it impacts people, COVID has, I guess, impacted us all in numerous ways. The top impact, though, that this survey found was a social impact, that people are really missing hanging out with their family and friends. and it's great that we can now regather. The second highest impact was on our finances, so that personal hit to our bank balances and our wallets, and the spending, I guess, impact that flows on from that. Now, we're thankful, I think, in this country to have had a early and some might say not quick enough, but a stimulus package and phases of stimulus packages that have come through. Now, the finances is going to be an interesting one as we recover, and it will be a long journey, but we're hoping that this stimulus gives us that bridge, as the metaphor has been used many times. The third biggest impact was on our mental health, that people are starting to feel the effects, and this is where there's that, I guess, concern in an era of social isolation, of increased anxiety or depression, increased impacts of having reduced interactions, and that access to the support and those places of connection and belonging, and also the habits, the regular places people go to feel good, getting out for the drink, catching up with people, getting out for the local park run. Appreciated Gary's comments about the activities he loves to do. For me, the Saturday morning, normally tomorrow I'd be off at my local regional park in Rouse Hill doing a park run with a couple of hundred people, and it's a key part of the week that I miss. And so you lose that social interaction, and it does begin to impact on people's mental health. And so that's one of the things we're very conscious of. The fourth area was around physical health. Now, people might be able to get out for that short walk, but missing that interaction, maybe it's the gym class or those regular hobbies that people haven't been able to do over these last few months. Now, in the work from home era, there's been some challenges as well, as people have taken their laptops home, for those who can work from home, who are fortunate to still have jobs in this era. And working from home, the biggest challenge was, again, the social isolation. Second was the blurring of the work and home boundaries. I'm a dad with 3 young kids, so if there's any noises you might hear, that's okay, I'm okay with it. But it's been a challenging era for many, whether it's with young kids who have been doing school from home, or whether it's from people who have maybe not had the right space and set up that household type, whether it's a space issue or more just a personality issue, where people do want to get back. And the third challenge was they want to get back for the collaboration purposes. So congrats on Laurie and the team all gathering together here for these weekly forums. These are essential, and it's been such a missed, I think, item in our work kind of day, just those casual conversations and those regular face-to-face meetings. Now, I think one of the most interesting questions, and I'll finish on this final couple of stats. We asked people, what actually have you enjoyed doing during this COVID era that you want to keep doing? And the top answer was the prioritization of spending more time with family and people in their household. So people have really enjoyed that time with their loved ones. And also on the list, we had things like people enjoying a slower pace of life, putting financial savings. We also had things like people, as 34%, are actually looking forward to spending more time in nature. So there's been this opportunity, I think, for people to have a chance, instead of heading into the cafes and the restaurants and those cultural events, people have had a chance to, maybe it's just doing the walk around the block or finding the local park, but have had that opportunity. And I anticipate that it will be a bit of an increased appetite, with global borders closed at the moment, for that increased engagement with local destinations. So it will be an interesting road to recovery, as people do want to have family time. They do want to have that sense of hope. And I think, as we've seen, there's been some challenges in the work from home era. So expecting people to move back to the workplaces. Some will still continue to want to have some flexibility in that space. But for the benefits of, I guess, this recovery, people will want to get out and do the things that are going to help their mental health, going to help them have that time with family and loved ones at a slower pace. But also, I think people looking to have that experience in nature as well, which will be, I'm very keen to get back out to the beaches, go surfing, as well as the local park run. And appreciate all the hard work many in the room are doing to create and find that road to recovery. So thank you for time.
I think we've got a few solutions for the public at this point in time. So that sounds awesome, Jeff. It really does. Yeah, I think just so you touched on the family component, and I really I was reading that in the document, and it certainly hit home even to myself. But how we could use that in this sector, and I've already seen an example of it. And if people haven't seen it, OEG have actually taken. I don't know whether they saw the research before, but obviously taken that learning, and they've adapted their current camp facilities to provide opportunities for families to come and experience their activities as a family entity. So there's one example of how we can hear this research and respond to it in a way that hopefully will also build people getting back out there and seeing the results, but also make sure we're sustainable as a sector. So that's great. Yeah, as Jeff said, has anyone got any questions for Jeff? It's a very quick 10 minutes of a very big document, but certainly for me, you gave me the top parts, which was great. Thanks, Jeff. The report's there, so please feel free to read it. Would anyone like to ask any questions, or is there more content that you would like Jeff to drill down on, potentially in another session or next week's forum? Would anyone like to unmute themselves, or you can put it in the chat. Big thanks from Kat, Jeff.
Pleasure. Well, hopefully everyone's had a couple of coffees while I've shared a few stats. Hopefully that hasn't hit you too hard and fast on a Friday morning, but all the best for the rest of the day, folks. I'll
Thank you,
leave
Jeff.
it to it, Laurie, if there's no question.
That's great. And can I use
Thanks,
Mark's beautiful quote yesterday, which was that leaders don't complain about the wind dropping in their sailboat. They change the sails to make the wind power them quicker.
Very good.
It was very good.
Very good.
I like that one.
Great. Again, Laurie, all the best.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, we'll move on to our next one, which is Erin, are you there? And would you like to unmute and yeah, let me see if I can start your video for you. There she is. There
Hi, how are you?
Good, how's it going?
Good, good, thank you. Hi to everyone else on the call. I think I saw there were about 30 or so people on here. So it's great.
Yeah. I think we've got around about that many. So 35, there you go. So thanks for joining us. I asked Erin to come along, and for those that know of the ATAP accreditation, Erin is certainly your person to go to for any questions. But just recently, ATAP has come out with some COVID response. So I'll leave it to Erin to describe, but she can only do it much better than I can. And I will hand over to you.
Thanks, Laurie. So I just I'd start with sort of who we are. So I actually work for an organisation called the Australian Tourism Industry Council. So we're the national representative body for the tourism industry, and we work with the state tourism representative bodies. So in New South Wales, that's largely the New South Wales Business Chamber. And we work with them and with a couple of objectives, mainly being to provide policy and advocacy on behalf of the tourism industry, to provide business development support for the tourism industry, and then around promotion and marketing of those businesses that are engaged in those programs. So we, as with everyone during the recent months, have been wanting to do whatever we can to try and provide some support for the tourism industry, and certainly sport, rec, camps, activities, outdoor activities, they all fall within the tourism industry. You're engaging with visitors to participate in an activity or overnight stay, even school groups, they're all counted as essentially tourism activities. So you all certainly fall within that scope. So we've been trying to consider how we could provide some support to the tourism industry throughout, and we initially came out with a program called a business recovery plan, which is essentially the businesses within our quality tourism framework, which is essentially the online system where our accreditation programs sit. And our accreditation programs are things like what was called the ATAP program, the star ratings programs, also the Australian Tourism Award systems. They all sit within our quality tourism framework. So we initially developed a business recovery module, which was really just providing some systems to help businesses undertake critical thinking on how they might be able to respond and recover during the various restrictions being lifted, understanding that throughout the country, each state is slightly different. But it was just really trying to help the business consider what they might be able to do at different, as restrictions ease, how that might impact their staff management, their training, what marketing and communications might need to be made both internally and externally. So it was really just a program, as I said, to help support businesses apply some critical thinking. But what we've also developed is what's called the COVID Clean accreditation module. It's actually called COVID Clean Practicing Business. And what we've done is, and we recognised that there was there's a whole lot of work that's provided by both state and federal government around the cleaning, particularly around the cleaning systems that should be in place, in addition to the social distancing and the density questions being asked. A lot of it has also been around, well, how do we clean and what cleaning systems should be in place to help support the businesses stopping the spread of COVID-19. So there's some really great information in Safe Work Australia, but it can also be hard to digest. And so what we've developed is a system, essentially any business is able to access it free of charge, just by accessing, going into the Quality Tourism Framework. And it asks a set of preliminary questions, and those questions are around staff management and training, just ensuring that your staff are aware of, are taught in proper cleaning and hygiene protocols around if they're unwell, that they're advised not to come to work. Also around what their obligations are with customers engaging with their business. So, having that right to be able to refuse entry or participation if someone is unwell, around gathering names and contact details of people that engage with your business. We talk about other business and customer expectations, so also how the business is going to communicate with customers on what their expectations are when they do come on site or do engage with the business, and that's around the social distancing, around the density quotations, but also around what their health and hygiene expectations are as well. There's information around signage and making sure we give businesses the access to different signage resources that are around, because there are some really great, particularly by federal government, there's some really great signage resources that businesses can use, download, adapt to themselves and put them and display around their business. But the key part of this program is really about a business identifying what areas that apply to them. So we've got a list of areas such as general common areas, public or shared bathrooms, accommodation, reception or office spaces, kitchen areas, retail and visitor information spaces, food and beverage, vehicles, attractions, conference meeting rooms, event spaces, cellar doors and shared equipment. And essentially the business will go through and they'll go through and they'll say, we've got an accommodation business. It then has a separate list where you can nominate from a whole list of subsequent items, such as, from basic walls and ceilings to bed frames and all the bits that are in there. You nominate if something is frequently or infrequently touched, and this then automatically generates a cleaning checklist, daily, weekly, monthly cleaning checklist for the business to do on top of what their on top of their usual cleaning practices. So this is about applying additional cleaning and disinfectant steps to help minimise the spread of COVID-19. So as I said, it essentially generates a customised checklist for the business that can export this checklist and then apply it and put it to use straight away.
Right.
And the aim of this is, sorry, Laurie?
There's just a question from Mark. How does it distinguish to COVID Ready program? Are you familiar with that program? I'm not certainly familiar. That's the ATIC one, but yeah, it's the differences there. What are they?
Yeah, so I haven't been able, the ATIC's COVID Ready program was only made or released to be able to look through yesterday. So I haven't been able to have a look through and do any comparisons at this stage. I do understand that there might be some comparisons in it. You know, to be frank, we're all just doing what we can to support our industry. And I think it's great that, you know, we are each trying to do what we can to pull some resources and support for the industry as we can. These are programs that are at ATIC, we're not charging for these programs. They're available readily to anybody. So this is not, you know, I think it's, as I said, great that ATIC have got programs in place as well. It might be seen as a competing system, but I think they're in very much the same boat as us. We're just trying to do what we can to provide that support to businesses where able. Wonderful. As I said, I haven't been able to actually go through it myself, and it'll be a really great exercise to do.
And for yours, is it only open to ATAC businesses, or can any business apply to yourself for this?
No, any business can apply to go through it. So there are some basic business standards that we would get a non-accredited business to answer, which is largely about safeguarding ourselves. If we're giving you a logo to say, you know, you've done this COVID clean practicing business module, then we need to make sure that there's some legitimate business practices in place, such as you've got the right licenses and permits. But this is it's quite a basic set of business standards that we ask them to meet, and again, at no cost. So anyone can go through the system. You can log in and create an account, and then register, go through the process, and there's no payment required. We've opened the whole framework to any business at this stage. So later down the track, probably, you know, I don't know exactly when, maybe in the new year, certainly we might start to look at, if people want to continue to engage, then there might be a fee that comes into place then, but it would be an opt-in. We wouldn't just be automatically charging that. And as I said, that's something that would be far down the track at this stage.
Great to hear, thank you. Sorry, I interrupted you. If you wanted to continue, if anyone's got any questions, please put them in the chat, because I'm following that as we go. But Erin, is there anything?
No, that's fine. The only other thing I was going to say that it does have in there, so I should say, this is all of the information is based from the Safe Work Australia website, and as I said, it is something that is freely available for businesses to go to, obviously, the Safe Work Australia. We've just tried to put it into a process or a system where a business can easily understand how it's going to apply to them, and as I said, create these customised checklists, cleaning checklists for them. We also have within there the risk register as well, which is highly regarded by Safe Work Australia for businesses to do, to consider what risks that COVID-19 will bring to their business, not in just the infection itself, but also looking at whether there's impacts to staff. Will they need additional training? Are there additional hazards that might come even with increased cleaning? Is there additional hazards that we need to consider, how the business will approach that and work to that? I think... sorry, someone's done. Thank you. So that's essentially it, as I said, in a nutshell. Look, we are updating it almost on a daily matter as new information comes in. We're working with our state counterparts to make sure there's state-specific information. So where there might be some specific requirements that differ from a national level, then we're doing our best to include those in there. And we're also working with our STOs. We've brought this to our Federal Tourism Minister, as well as far as we can, to try and get them to see that this is available and what we're doing for our industry, because our idea being that if we have something like this in place, and whether it's ours or the ATIC one, you know, as I said, we're supportive of both. If our industry can put things like this in place that provide consumer confidence that we're doing our part to help to stop the spread and the potential infection of COVID-19, then it gives us a greater place to be able to continually open the doors and open the capacity for us to bring business in.
Yes, I must admit we're all going to miss all the services and support we're getting through this time as we start getting back into normal. But let's hope, as Jeff said, we take some of the stuff that we've learned over this time in the connections and support that we've had, and it does continue. But thank you so much, Erin. Really appreciate you being here today. And if there's any other questions, I'll take them on notice and send them to you direct. But if you want to put your contact details in there, feel free. And we'll let you go, but thank you again.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so going on to our next ones, it's largely around what's come from you and questions and different initiatives about what's going on in the sector. The first one, I just wanted to ask, keep it cool. Where's Lucas? I'm going to find Lucas there. I just want Lucas to tell quickly what he's up to. And I found him. Let me see if I can get your video started, Lucas. Are you there? There you are.
Hi.
Welcome. So I just wanted to give Lucas a quick minute to tell everyone what he's up to, and then we've got a challenge that everyone needs to look at in the transport area and what people are doing around some of these restriction requirements. So over to you, Lucas.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me on this forum. It's my first foray into a forum like this, so I've been paying close attention. For those of you that don't know me, which I assume is everyone, I'm based in the Snowy Mountains in Jindabyne. Currently a beautiful day here, but I'm inside on my computer. It's been my kind of classic my life. So I have recently started an initiative in the Snowy Mountains to pretty much in a nutshell plant trees. I based the initiative pretty much off there being a lack of a direct action climate movement in the outdoor and more specifically the snow and winter communities. So yeah, like 12 months ago, I kind of came up with the idea. I've been working on it for the past 12 months and officially launched not 2 Wednesdays ago. And yeah, it's all full steam ahead. So the main kind of goals are to get trees in the ground, you know, in a hope that they offset some carbon, draw down some carbon, and you know, make our planet a nicer place to be. And second to that is to kind of build a community around direct action and the need to look after the climate. So yeah, that's pretty much, that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Lucas. He's just joined our group, and being a social enterprise and also charity status, which is an amazing achievement into itself. I thought it was important to share that knowledge of what you're doing, because you never know what comes up from a network and the opportunities that it may arise. So thank you so much. Okay, we might jump on.
Absolutely, no worries. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Jumping on to the next one. Mark, you online? I think I saw you jump up a little bit earlier.
Yep, I'm here.
Thanks for joining us. And may I say welcome to the team, because you're also coming on board as a newbie onto Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, being in the ACT, obviously. And thank you for being here. But Mark proposed a challenge to me that I thought this is a great one to share as a network and see what ideas everyone else came up with to help him conquer this one. And I'll talk to some of the links I've got down there in a second. But Mark, over to you. I've tried to summarise the quick 4 points that we were talking about there and some of the challenges, but we've got 5 minutes left. So let's see how we can manage this one.
Okay, so our issue is around one of the 6 that Gary raised, and it's maintaining social distance. We run bicycle tours through, well, basically from South Australia through the top of Queensland. We're based in Canberra, but we run tours into New South Wales. We have a Sydney to Melbourne tour that we've just postponed because of COVID-19. And we use 12-seater buses, a 12-seater bus and a four-wheel drive as a support vehicle for our tours. At a primary level, we're using it from a safety perspective. If we never take more than 15 people on the road. So using those two vehicles, if we're out there, there's a lightning storm, there's a traffic incident that's closing the road, we can uplift the whole group in one go. And that's been the primary driving force behind our risk management plan. Obviously now with 4 square metres per person, 1.5 metres separation, using a minibus is not practical. And when you kind of look in New South Wales, that the advice of public transport is that we should be in Sydney only 12 on a 50-seater bus. It says to us that what we're being told is to continue our tours and using the safety features that the 12-seater buses provided us in the past. We need to put a 50-seater bus on the road, which then obviously causes traffic obstructions and everything. So we took a scenario through our risk management register, and we ended up with, I don't know what this is going to look like. Oh yeah, that comes out okay. Where effectively the outcome from that, running it through, was that by putting people in a bus, as we've always done before, and assuming that some of our guests, who a majority of them are over 65, have pre-existing or underlying health conditions making them vulnerable to COVID-19, assuming that we've been on tour for, say, 5 days of a 16-day trip, we've been into cafes, hotels and galleries along the way, and some other business that we've been to has had someone in who's pre-symptomatic, and one of our people picks up COVID-19. So in the issue of making a decision for safety reasons to stop a ride for a day, we put everybody in the bus. We take about 60 minutes to get to our destination, and we, in that process, one of our guests gets infected. So we look at it from an initial risk level, likelihood. Well, under that scenario, it's very likely that somebody's going to get infected. So the consequences of that, well, using the grid that we have, the consequences for that would be rated in our risk matrix as catastrophic. It could lead to death or permanent disability, severe or lifelong psychological trauma. So we end up with and I'm not sure if people are used to running a risk management process using the Australian standard, but we end up with an initial risk level of 2. Now, for us to run a tour, we have to have an initial risk level of 4, 5 or 6. So we go, what sort of control measures can we put in place here? Well, we go, well, first of all of our vehicles will be cleaned and disinfected the night before the next day. So at the end of every day, we will clean and then disinfect all of the vehicles based upon the recommendations of Safe Work Australia. So before putting people onto the bus, we'll get guests to be shown how to sanitise their hands. We require them to sanitise their hands in front of us. We provide them with a disposable surgical mask and show them how to fit and wear it. We require them to wear it during the tour, and guests will be required to sanitise hands upon exiting the vehicle and then dispose of the mask in a bin provided. Most 12-seater buses, as you're aware these days, don't have windows that open. So we'll have to set the air to fresh air, and the air conditioning will be in use at all times. So the logic for asking our guests to wear a mask comes from the fact that the Australian health authorities recommend if you are sick with the symptoms of COVID-19, you should wear a mask. Secondly, they also advise if you are looking after somebody who may have COVID-19, you will wear a mask. So we're taking that and going, well, we're going to assume that everybody is infectious, so we'll get everybody to wear masks so they're not transmitting it. But the Australian health authorities at the same time also indicate, and I've just done one of their training modules, which is called Infection Control COVID-19, and it's run by Department of Health and Aspen Medical. And it turns around and says, wearing a face mask in public won't help protect you from infection. It's not made clear in that why they tell you in the previous sentence that carers who are looking after somebody wearing a mask would offer them protection. So we're making the assumption that, you know, based upon that, we can't mitigate the issue. So we go along and saying, well, have we been able to mediate this? And we go, not really. We think we have, because medical practitioners for the last 100 years have been wearing masks for two reasons. They protect the patient from wound infections, and they also prevent the health worker from being infected by the patient. But because we're being told that it won't help us, we have to say that it's unlikely to reduce the risk, and therefore the consequences remain catastrophic. And therefore we have a residual risk level that's not as bad, but still prevents us from running the tour and the use of the vehicles. So
Great.
we come up to here is, how do we do this?
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was a great opportunity. If anyone has had some thoughts about this, obviously in the current restrictions is different to the risk opposed in this, and I'd love anyone to jump in and offer any thoughts, any ideas, or any commentary on that, knowing I know we've run out of time, but feel free to continue. I'll leave it open as long as we have this discussion for. But yeah, does anyone have any thoughts or comments for Mark? I've found a few things there that you probably can see, but yes, I'll
one of the questions I'd like to ask Gary, sorry, that Gary was saying, only ask the questions you need to ask. Is this a question we need to ask? Yeah, should we not be asking this question? Because we've found in the past when you ask questions, sometimes you open up a can of worms. So
yeah, absolutely. Let me put those links in there for you. I'm just wondering if I can do that from here. I have to stop sharing. I might send them to you all, but I will take you to them because this is interesting. And like Gary said, we haven't seen the latest public order, which obviously will outline legally what we can and can't do and what we need to abide by. So that's another spectrum to the risk side. If I go to this one, actually I can do it. Here we go. Let me see if I can do this. Senator, this was an article actually put out by the Financial Review, which literally talks about how transport is exempt from a lot of the 4 metre square rule. And then when I went to the New South Wales government site, it actually reiterated that.
So Laurie, you'll be making live links to these for us?
Yes, they're just in the chat there now for you. So if you go to the second one, which is the government side, it talks about the 4 metre square rule. And again, I've got to wait for the next public order to come out. I have an inkling from all the discussions I've had with government that the 4 square metre rule is not going to go away, but what is clear is it's not for places of residence, occupiers or operators of the premises. It's only for public spaces. So, and I think Ian's just put it in there too. New South Wales is telling bus and train drivers to let everyone on and not police the 4 square metre rule. Which then allows Qantas to really do what they're doing. So it's actually not, it's actually asking for public areas to enforce the 4 square metre rule. Again, it probably a little bit ambiguous, but it will come out in the next public order to see if that changes or alters. But that article was quite interesting from the AFR, Financial Review. I can go to that because it actually does really talk about how Safe Work Australia has been the advice around that on buses, ferries, trams and trains. So I thought that might be a really good one for you. The last one there is the ATIC COVID Ready, which I think someone's already mentioned, and certainly Erin, her program is similar. But this one is actually a course that they're offering, and I think it's on the 17th of June for I don't know how long it operates for, but it's the 17th of June for transport. So it's solely around the transport sector. So I think that might be something to also have a good look at. I thought I might actually even jump on there myself and find out what they're going to be saying.
The reason I ask the question of what's the difference between that and COVID Ready is obviously COVID Clean is free. COVID Ready is 150 plus GST. So
yep,
none of us have any income.
No, that's right, exactly.
Can we send you, Laurie, to save the problems for it?
Well, that's why people pay membership as well. It gives them the values and space. But in saying that, Ian, did you want to just talk to your question, Ian Rockwell? Have you got that? Where are you? There you are. Oops.
Yeah, sure, Laurie. How you going?
Good. Oh, sorry. I think I just muted you. Let's try that again.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay, yeah, I know we're running out of time, but I'm not sure if other people are interested in getting together in a session where we can actually sort of discuss and nut out some of our plans going forward with COVID. Obviously, we're all developing fairly solid and robust policies and procedures and ways of going about things. But there's certainly a few different roadblocks and lots of different things to think about. I'm certainly keen to share with people where we're at, if other people are keen to get together and chat, so we can look at some of the roadblocks that are there and some of the things that are causing lots of thought, and see where people are at with those sorts of things.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea, and yeah, certainly I'd be happy to host that. I think after we've got the public order for Monday, that will be a great, because I feel that the public order that's next going to come out is going to probably be in place for a while. So once we know really the intricacies of that, it's probably a good time to do it. So no, that's great. If everyone else wants to be part of that, stick a yes up in your participants little tab there, just so we can get an inkling, because I haven't set up a poll, but I'd love to know how many people would be interested in that, because I'll certainly set that up if there's interest there. Great. And Ian, did you have a question you wanted me to pass on to Gary? He did apologise he had to run, but he's happy to take that on notice.
Yeah, no, I saw he had to leave. I'll shoot him an email. I guess it was just again a degree of frustration that he spoke very clearly that we are the people who've got the skills to get things moving, get people outdoors, work on mental health and things like that. But the deeper we get into this, the more I feel our industry, outdoor education, is going to be the last sector to get up and running. We see football last night on TV with huddles and coughing, spitting, sweating. I know they're above the law, those blokes, even though I love footy and I watch the game. But it's a bit frustrating that they're able to go to work and we can't, where we can put people those 6 guidelines that he set out, our plan covers those in detail, and we're able to use those things in detail and can comply with each of those 6 areas. Right up to sleeping kids in their own tents and things like that, but we can't go to work. So I'll talk to him a bit more about that. I'm sure other people are a little bit frustrated as well.
Yeah, sorry, and just to clarify, is that purely because your market's not coming back? I mean, obviously, as you said, you can start tomorrow, but is it because you haven't got your clientele, the schools, or? Oh
yeah, the clientele, but that's based on the government's authority in terms of allowing what they call excursions. What we know is not an excursion here.
Look, certainly it's not without trying, and I know we've got a couple of Department of Education staff members on the line, but not in the right positions, unfortunately, because I think they've got the same frustrations if I'm paraphrased for them. But certainly it's not without trying. I think I've told a couple of people now I'm officially on the stalking list for the Department of Education. But we're hoping.
We appreciate your efforts in that area, and I understand fully. I heard Nathan ask the question last week about that, and I recognise that you're doing as much as you can in that area for us. But I guess it's just the way that he pointed out that we do have the tools and the skills that are necessary now to get particularly teenagers out and about socially and physically in the bush.
Yes.
But I feel that we're going to be sort of left a fair bit behind pubs, clubs, gyms, football, everything else in terms of a sector coming back to work.
Agreed. And like I've said to a couple of our members, if you do have independent schools on your books, I suggest you really start ringing them and talking to them, because they are their own rule setters when it comes to this sort of thing, and their risk management principles are certainly what they look at and not what they're told by the department. So that's certainly a first step. But I hear, and yeah, certainly would really love to continue on that and get some results for you in the near future.
Beauty, thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Is there any other questions from anyone? Just seeing a few comments there. 4 metre rule, ways to operate water sports, kayak. That's a really good one. Can I take that on notice? I want to see if that applies under the transport. If anyone's got any other thoughts on that one, please feel free to jump in. Great, Redlands is looking to recommence their programs last week in August. So certainly by all indications, I've heard that a lot of the private schools are definitely rebooking for the start of term 3. Great. I can't see any other questions that we haven't addressed there. And I know we've gone over time, and I'm so sorry, but I did know it was a jam-packed agenda today. So without further ado, I'm happy to sit back and talk to everyone. But Becky, yes, I did. I forgot you. So sorry. Becky's got the symposium coming up. I'm talking about mental health. What a great way to intro that. Don't forget, jump on. She's put the website in there. So thank you so much, Becky, for that. But I will let everyone go, and if you want to hang back and chat, I'll be here. So thank you, and may I say Yanu. See you later.